Hello and welcome to a pre-season edition of the Blue Monday podcast with me, Richard Woodward, and I'm joined by ITFC Academy expert Joe Fairs. Joe, how's it going? Are you sweating like anything? It is
I
hot
am.
here.
Yeah. I've got sort of the windows across the office open, trying to get a bit of breeze, but it's not really helping at the moment. It's
We are
just
going to shed
air
the
blowing
pounds
past me.
as this podcast goes on. We'll be a stone lighter by the end of it. How are you doing? It's been a long summer.
Yeah, good. Yeah, no, sort of getting back in the swing of football and been to a few games over the last sort of couple of nights and couple of weeks and ready to go for the new season.
Have you been doing it? You're into your cricket, aren't you?
Yeah, and I'll try and watch the cricket, but I haven't been to any this summer, so I don't think I'll be getting to any of the Ashes bar, Sky VIP draws or anything like that.
Did you do the Sunday of the Wimbledon final, the Cricket World Cup final, and the F1 was?
Yeah, but I'm not massively interested in tennis or the F1, so that was just the Cricket World Cup final, which was unbelievable. The tension and how long it went on for, I was on the edge of my seat for about an hour and a half, just at the end of the game, just back and forth, and
if all cricket was like
somehow
that,
managed to win it.
I think we'd all watch a lot more of it, wouldn't we?
Well, I couldn't watch much more of it. So.
No, it's quite low. And did you get into any of the Women's World Cup as well? I'd have to say I watched all the women's game, all the England games. Did you get into it?
I didn't watch all the games. I was away on holiday for a lot of it, so I tried to catch England games where I could. And we landed and I got back to watch the second half of the semi-final. So I was the sort of jinx on that as I was in the Men's World Cup when I went out to Russia for it. But no, I thought it was decent and it was good to have the publicity it was getting from BBC and sort of really brought it to the forefront of people's minds. And I think the sort of terrestrial TV, that and the Cricket World Cup final shows how much you need to get these sports on terrestrial TV if you want them to grow, like the cricket.
Here. I'm trying to find a neat segue to get back to Ipswich Town. Talking of things that won't be on terrestrial TV anytime soon, Ipswich Town. And you mentioned that you've done a few pre-season games and you've done some on the 18s and 23s. Which ones have you seen so far?
First team wise, I watched the Germany game on the internet because I was in Germany, obviously, for that. Yep. Or my laptop was. I went to Colchester on the Friday night, Sudbury on the Saturday for the under 23s. The under 23s last night at Lowestoft and the under 18s at Felixstowe on
packing them in.
The other night, Tuesday night.
And I've done Notts County and I'm doing Cambridge. I don't know, are you doing Cambridge on Saturday?
Yeah, I'm doing Cambridge on Saturday and then the under 18s at Stowmarket on Tuesday.
Oh, hey.
That'd be my pre-season done.
This is how you've got to do the football manager scouting, right? You've got to see every game.
Yeah, well, this is the sort of biggest chance where you get to see them all quite quickly. And when you're watching sort of the 18s one day and the 23s the next and the first team the next, it helps you sort of set a barometer of where they are in comparison to each other. So it does help, and we don't really have a huge amount of time into the season to get the ratings done. So
because it comes out in winter, doesn't it?
Yeah, so normally about November, but my deadline's a long way before then for minor changes. Anything big you can push through, but it's hard to change an under 18 to be slightly better because he might be knocking on the door of the under 23s as opposed to the thunderstorm has just started here as well. On that note,
if Joe disappears, we'll know why. I haven't had one yet, so hopefully we won't black out. We'll keep going. Just a question from me. We've had plenty of questions, so thank you everyone for the questions. Is this the point where this is where we see we've seen Dobra, El Mazzuni, a lot of Bailey Clements sort of making appearances amongst the first team. Is this kind of normal and then they'll regress back to under 23s, or is there a view that these are the three? There's a few others that I'm probably forgetting as well that might actually be around the squad.
I think El Mazzuni will stay around the squad, but I think Dobra and Bailey Clements will probably drop back down. It sort of is often the case in pre-season where sort of 3 or 4 move up, and then as the squad gets complete late into the season, there's the 3 or 4 tend to drop down because there's signings that have come in. So these guys have really got to make a big impression in the off season to make it. And it looks like El Mazzuni has made that impression. He went away and played full international football for Tunisia, which has obviously helped him. I'm sure an away game against Iran is sort of a real baptism of fire and sort of really helps sort of to adapt to the senior football, which he looks like he's doing.
Yeah, well, and you mentioned on the favourite Blue Monday chat that he's found his way into the squad photo, isn't he? So that's always an important indicator as well. Let's just go through the signings, and I'm going to struggle with our goalkeeper signing from West Brom, Adam Prisbeck.
Yes, something like that.
Thomas Holly as well, free on from Gillingham, and then it's not in too many. Luke Garbutt, who on loan from Everton, who's formerly a left back, but we think is a left winger
Yeah,
now. And then I'm looking through, and then
James Norwood.
it's the big one, isn't it? Norwood,
Yeah.
which on the face of it looks an absolute coup for us.
Yep.
If pre-season form and obviously his season with Tranmere is anything to go by, we're just waiting for the injury, aren't we, against Cambridge on Saturday?
Well, he seems fairly sort of touch woods, fairly resilient. He didn't miss any games for Tranmere. I think he only missed one when he was suspended last year, and he's played a lot of games over the years, and he's at an age where he should know his body and be able to manage it. But obviously, he wouldn't be the first player to come to Ipswich and have a lot of injuries.
Well, exactly
but
right, yeah.
touch wood, he doesn't, because our season does depend on him, really.
I think so, yeah. So what we'll do is, as I say, there's not a huge amount of transfer business to talk about. So we'll kind of go through the squad and assess kind of where it's at, where we think probably any strengthening is needed. And Lambert's today mentioned he hopes to get 3 or so players in, probably loans or maybe another freebie. And then we'll have a look about how we think this squad will line up. With a view to the start of the season. So this is me and Joe having a bit of guesswork and a little bit of assessment of what we've seen in pre-season. We've got a load of questions which we'll probably touch on as we go along, but otherwise we'll save those to the end. So let's crack on, shall we? And let's hopefully beat the worst of the thunderstorm for you. So I guess in goal, the biggest debate we're going to have is Bart versus Thomas Holly. Where would you go on these two, Joe?
I'd still go with Bart personally. I know he's had a poor season last year. There's no getting away from that. But ultimately, he is our 3 times Player of the Year, full Poland international, and we know he's a brilliant goalkeeper at the Championship level. So he should be a brilliant goalkeeper at League One level. There's question marks about his distribution. Holy did look better at his distribution at Colchester on the Friday, and I do think that is something Lambert wants. But if we can't shift Bart, having your most expensive player sitting on the bench, not even in a position where you can't chuck him on for 15-20 minutes at the end of each game, is not ideal. And I think that move to Millwall collapse and has sort of been a real blow for everybody.
Yeah. Do you think that was Holly was brought in to be number one on the expectation that Bart was going to be shipped out?
I'd imagine that Holly was going to be brought in and we were going to be looking to bring another keeper. And I know we've been linked with like Remy Matthews and a couple of others. I think we'd have been looking to bring 2 in to compete in the same way that Bart and Gherkin had done. I think that's what Lambert would have wanted, two pushing for that number 1 jersey as opposed to an out-and-out one. But with Holly, I'm sure when Holly was told he was coming here, he didn't expect to be here with Białkowski at this time of the season. I think he'd expected Bart to be gone and him to be having a straight fight out with a clean slate against somebody else.
We've talked about so Bart. There was the mistake in the first German game, wasn't it? Was Utrecht? No, which one was it? When
Dusseldorf.
It was the Fortuna game, wasn't it? Where he kind of spilt it into that. Was not great. There was some iffy kick in at Notts County again. I just wonder whether. I probably agree with you that he's going to start the season, but I do wonder whether Lambert will look to. I don't think he's going to get a huge amount. He's not going to get a short shrift, I think, is what I'm trying to say. The opposite is short shrift. Yeah. I think a few mistakes early doors. I think Bart will be on the bench, don't you?
Yeah, quite easily. He may even start it on the bench. I'd probably come down on the side of him starting, but I don't think he could have any complaints if he didn't, because he's sort of shown a couple of issues in pre-season, which were the issues that were haunting him last year. Yeah. So I just saw him at the gym about an hour ago. I should have followed him into the changing rooms. And
on the weights or cardio?
He was in the swimming pool with his children.
Oh, okay, fine. Working hard then. Yeah. I just want to quickly pause on the keepers and talk about Harry Wright. The thought, I guess, is that we need to sort out our pronunciation on Prisbeck. I'm going with that for now. Is that he's in there to allow us to loan out Harry Wright? Is that something that you'd expect?
That's what it sounds like. I don't think Prisbeck has played much under 23 football when he was at West Brom, where Harry Wright has basically had a year and a half being the number 1 for the under 23. So his next step is to get out on loan. Prisbeck is a year or 2 younger. His next step is playing the under 23s. So it's all set up to try and get Harry Wright out, presumably to a non-league team, probably a conference national team on loan, to try and play as a number 1.
My West Midlands sources tell me that Prisbeck is highly thought of up here, just a little bit down the pecking order. There's a few too many youth keepers that are stopping him getting exposure in under 23s or reserve football, so that's a positive one. But yeah, expect Harry Wright probably to go out on loan. So we'll come back to who we think will start. I think we're probably sat on the fence at the moment, but two good, if Bart stays, two decent first choice keepers there, I would say, albeit one of them's on a huge wedge, and one of them is highly thought of, definitely a league with Gillingham last season, so it'll be an interesting one. Let's move forward to centre backs, because this is where we've got the big issues for day one. I'll just read them through and then I'll list where we've got issues. So Chambers, who sounds like he's had a good pre-season so far, who is suspended on the opening day. Toto Enciala, who picked up the injury in Germany, but also expected to probably be first choice centre back after a good end to the season. Janoi Danassian is an option at centre-back. I think Lambert probably favours him there more than right-back, but we'll come back to Danassian and whether Lambert fancies him at all later on. Then we've got the youngsters. We've got Wolfenden and we've got Ndaba, and I've got Cole Scouse in there because he played at centre-back against Sheffield United, and I think he did all right there. So ignoring Chambers and Enciala, who pick themselves, I think if we've got a full strength side. What is your take on Danassian? Let's deal with the Danassian conundrum first.
Whenever I've seen Danassian play, I've always been relatively impressed with him. He's not. It seems strange that he was bombed out so sort of quickly, almost by Hurst as well as Lambert. But he had some good games for us last year. He played up against sort of right back when we were away at Derby and kept Tom Lawrence quiet. Villa at home and kept
Brentford had a decent game, didn't he? Home.
Yeah, he had a poor first half because he was stuck at left wing back and then went across to right back and did well. But the managers don't see it. But he just seems sort of good one-on-one defender. He sort of can use the line well and things. He's not the best at getting forward, and he doesn't put much for crossing when he does get in a position. But I think defensively he's sound, and I'd like to see him given a bit of a chance because we have spent a decent fee on him. We spent 750,000 on him, haven't we?
I just wonder on this one, and this is extrapolating from Lambert's previous behaviours. Once Lambert's made a decision on a player, that's usually it. So I wonder whether Danassian can do anything really to get back into favour, apart from hope that everyone in front of him gets injured and Lambert has no choice, which might work in his favour. We might see him there on Saturday. But do you think Lambert sees him as a centre back or a right back or a left back?
Well, he made it quite clear when he first came in that he saw him as a centre-back from his Villa days. And I think also either Stuart Taylor or Matt Gill was an assistant at Tranmere, and they took him on loan from Villa when they were there. So they know the player well, but I don't know whether when he went to Tranmere, whether he played as centre-back or right-back. I'm not sure on that, but he played a fair bit of left-back for Accrington. But I think if he was going to be centre-back, he'd have been tried at centre-back at some point in pre-season, and he hasn't been. So you've got to assume he's a right-back because that's where he's been playing.
The two youngsters then, Wolfenden and Ndaba, I'm guessing that Wolfenden is probably more likely to take one of those centre-back spots if we don't sign anyone than Ndaba. Would you agree with that? Yeah,
well, Wolfenden played sort of 30-odd games for Swindon in League Two last year. Good reviews from their local press guys and their fans, and so he's shown he can cut it in senior football. When he has played for the first team here, it was only that one game at the start of last season against Blackburn. He looked good. Crystal Palace away in the Cup, he played right back that day actually and looked good up against Andros Townsend and sort of coming on with fresh legs against him, and he defended him well. So I'm comfortable with him playing. In Ndaba, he's been very up and down for the under 23s. Some day you look at him and he's got everything. He's got all the physical attributes. He's got a good left foot. He can get up in the air. He's strong, but he still switches off. He still makes mistakes. And
yeah, there was nearly one at Notts County. Him and Bart had kind of cross wires and
He was part of a under 23s team at the end of the season that conceded a hell of a lot of goals in their last 4 or 5 games. And I'm not saying that's all down to one player because he had a sort of young team around him, trialists around him. But you'd expect if they're sort of knocking on the door of the first team that there'd almost be a Rolls Royce in those games and get through them. And I don't think he impressed enough. And the fact we know that Chambers is out of the first game. We know Enciala's out. And the fact we haven't seen Wolfenden and Ndaba playing alongside each other is sort of a real indication that we're not going to see that at Burton. So it's going to be Wolfenden plus
another,
whether that be John Guthrie or James Wilson or somebody else.
Yeah. I just wanted to get the general thoughts on Ndar, because there was a few matches towards the end of the season where it was going to happen. He was going to get a position in the starting lineup, or potentially in this. He's going to be in the matchday squad, wasn't he? And probably come off the bench, and that didn't happen. Yeah. Are we putting too much hope on him? Are we rushing him, or has he got the skills to be able to back up that praise, or that the high profile that he's got in the academy?
Yeah, well, he was on the bench a couple of times, and Lambert said he was going to make his debut before the end of the season. But I do think he just looked at some of those performances at the back end for the under-23s and his attitude. Maybe I don't know. That's total guesswork. And thought, actually, no, you're not ready for this debut yet, and pushed it back. And he hasn't even played a huge amount in pre-season, really, does he? He didn't play at all against Colchester. He played a half against Notts County, was he? And
yeah, came on the second half. Yeah,
one half of the game in Germany. So he's not really played a huge amount. I think ideally with him, he'd be going out on loan to try and toughen up, but I don't think we're going to be able to send him out. So he's at an age where this could end up being a bit of a wasted season for him, because we sort of need him in the squad for depth, but I don't think he's going to be trusted unless he can really turn it round in the under-23s over the next few weeks.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you that I saw it. I mean, I saw him once the under-23s against Coventry, and he didn't stand out. I mean, he was captain, I think, that day, was solid enough, but you wouldn't have picked him out and said this is a player that's ready for first-team football. So yeah, a little bit of development possibly needed there. Thoughts on Cole Scouse and whether he's seen as a centre-back option? He's obviously we know him as a sitting or a defensive midfielder. Played at right back against Notts County in the second half, and you know what you're going to get with Scouse at right back. You're not going to get a huge amount of defensive stuff coming through, but you're not going to get a huge amount of bombing forward. Scouse at centre back, is that an option?
I don't think in a two it's an option. I think he's going to struggle in a back four to play there alongside somebody, because while he played there against Sheffield United and did well, that was part of a back three where he could sort of sit back and sweep and had people around him. But when it's like I say, it's not that he's poor in the air, but you get a big centre forward on him every time, and he's going to struggle because he's heading the ball from a different angle there compared to when you're in midfield. You're not used to somebody bombing up against you and that side of things. And I just think in a two, he's going to be centre back is not an easy position to drop into with regards to sort of offside lines and everything like that. So I'd be surprised if he was an option there, but I wouldn't rule it out completely.
So he's an option for the fullbacks only because I saw him there for Notts County. But going through the fullbacks, two that we know for sure, Kenlock and Emmanuel. We talked about Danassian already. Luke Garber is an option, though, as I said at the start. I think we probably expect him to be a winger more than anything. I think you've flagged that Wolfenden can play on the right side if push. And then we're into the academy players. We've got Barry Cotter, Bailey Clements, the aforementioned Bailey Clements, and sadly, written down here on my list, but now out for 6 months, Tristan Nydam, who'd made a cameo throughout pre-season at fullback. Just your thoughts on that one, and whether there was any likelihood of Nydam getting a chance at fullback in the first team.
Well, I really like Nydam at fullback when I've seen him play there previously. I think he was another one that played in that Crystal Palace game. I'm pretty sure he played left back then as well, and he's just such a good, neat and tidy footballer, and he's got that sort of right level of aggression and sort of gets it going and good positioning and tackling. And I saw him there in pre-season friendly against Peterborough about 2 years ago, and I thought he could really make an impact there, but obviously it hasn't happened. Judging from the pre-season friendlies, it seemed pretty obvious that Lambert was having him as his backup to Miles Kenlock there, because he was getting a lot of minutes at left back and we weren't looking at anyone else. We brought Luke Garber in, but Nydam was the guy that started there. So I do think that he was going into the season as backup left back, and it's a real shame that his injuries sort of could potentially cost him his Ipswich Town career when you look at it.
Is he out of contract next summer, is he?
No, I think he's still got a while left, but it just ends up with effectively 2 wasted seasons, don't you?
Yeah,
next year, last season was a write-off. This year will be a write-off, and then
good show.
Then what happens?
It's really sad, and we obviously wish him all the best in his recovery. It's going to be tough. So we've Kenlock is probably first choice left back at this point. Emmanuel, let's talk about Emmanuel. It's a really tricky one because we're now a division below. He had a few minutes at the end of last season, but made the odd mistake. Do you think Lambert trusts Emmanuel?
No. In a word, I don't think he does. sort of the Preston game last year, wasn't it, where he played the first half and just got the hook at half time. You didn't see him again after that for the season, and he doesn't look like he trusts him, even on Tuesday night where he takes him off at half time, puts Cole Skuse on. I think he's desperately scrabbling around for another right back option, because I think he seems comfortable enough with Danashi in there, but I just don't think he rates Emmanuel at all. And I think right back is a real problem position for us, because I think we've got two right backs that he's not a big fan of at all, and I think that'll be one of the three signings that he spoke about today. I'd be amazed if one of those wasn't a right back.
Yeah, this feels like we've been chatting about our right back issues for bloody forever, isn't it? It's like England's left-hand midfield problem from the noughties, isn't it? It's just crazy. One option, I guess, there, though possibly a little bit of the Corey and Dar was about him, is Barry Cotter, who has also had pre-season minutes. Do you think he's ready for the first team?
I think he looks ready when I see him. Like I watched him at Lowestoft
a little bit as well.
He has done previously for the 23s, but he played at Lowestoft last night and put in a sort of really mature, good display there. But it does seem that he's been bombed out effectively. There's no knowledge or anything behind that, but the fact he didn't even go on a pre-season tour when people like Bailey Clements are going, who are a lot lower down the pecking order, you'd imagine, and he's just stuck in the under 23s. I'd be very surprised if he's here at the end of his contract, but he's still got 2 years to run on it, but he just doesn't seem to be in favour at all.
One of Mick's men, maybe, I don't know. It seems a strange one. You mentioned Bailey Clements. Let's talk about him. He came on against Notts County and again is featured in bits and pieces through the pre-season. Highly thought of. Left back, I think, can play centre back as well if needed as well. Thoughts on him? He's probably still a little bit lightweight in terms of stature, but
yeah, it's a bit early for Bailey still. He's a good player though, and I think he will come good for Ipswich, but I think it's just still that little bit too early in what's going to be a real rough and tumble league to put really inexperienced fullbacks in there. He wouldn't let you down, but I think he might struggle.
Is there a possibility of a loan for either of Cotter or Clements?
I'd hope Cotter gets out on loan, because I just don't think he's going to get a chance here. So I'd hope to see Cotter get out. Clements, he might be one that's considered for a loan maybe post-January.
How long has he been in the under-23s? Was it just last season that he broke through?
He's actually spent the last 2 seasons there, so both years of his scholarship.
Still quite young though, isn't he?
Yeah, so he's a first-year pro now, but he actually spent his whole sort of under-17 and under-18 season in the under-23, so he's sort of got a good level of experience. He probably just needs to strengthen up a little bit now, though.
So I think we agree that Kenlock is probably first-choice left-back. Garbutt possibly at a push is the backup there. Danasian or Emmanuel could cover if needed in absence of Nydam, and we think probably a right-back signing is needed. Albeit it will be Emmanuel Danasian potentially there, but we don't think Lambert trusts them. So some business to be done there. The sitters, let's go into midfield. Sitters, so we talked about Skuse. I don't think we need to talk much about Flynn Downs. I think I'm hopeful that Flynn Downs will be one of the first choice sitting midfielders. If we've got two and it's the defensive minded ones, I'd like to think he'd start to see Skuse be moved aside to make way for Flynn Downs. But I've also kind of got sitting midfielders, if we're playing a 4-2-3-1, that might have a little bit of creativity about them, and I think Andre Dizelle and Emir Hughes might be options there as well. There's not a huge amount of debate on these ones, is there, Joe? Am I missing anything?
No, I think they're all the players that could play there, and that's where we've got good options there in reality. And I agree with what you say about hopefully this is the year that Downs takes over from Skuse in that role, because Skuse is on his last legs effectively, and Downs looked really good at Colchester on Friday. I thought he had a lot of energy, carried the ball really well, he drove us forward, he played in between the lines, and just looked a sort of man from last year as opposed to
ended the season really well, didn't he?
Yeah, and Downs really, I'm sorry, Lambert, you can tell really likes him because he played him a lot, probably more than any of the other youngsters.
So I think that is one area where I think we've got good strength and depth, and then we're kind of into the what I've classified as advanced midfielders, and we'll lump in the number 10s here as well, Joe, if that's all right.
Okay.
So what I would class as the central midfielders or advanced midfielders, if you've got two sitters and
number 8s.
Yeah, number 8s, the old Matt Holland role. is who's can play forward, I guess. But we're talking John Nolan, again, Andre Dizelle maybe forward, Teddy Bishop if Teddy Bishop comes back from injury. Another disappointing pre-season injury there. Alan Judge is an option here if he stays, and Idris Ilmazuni as well. We'll come back to talk about formations, Joe, and how this configuration might work. But again, when you're looking at the likes of Hughes, Nolan, Dizelle, Bishop if he gets fit, and Judge, that's decent first team quality. And then talk to us about Ilmazuni if you can, and where you see him fitting in.
I think at the moment he's probably seen more as a 10 than an 8. I think when he plays in the younger age groups, he is someone that will play as an 8 just because he can get all around the pitch. But from what I've seen of him in pre-season, Lambert looks like he wants to be playing him further up the field. I think he's a very good pressure of the ball and wins the ball back in good positions. I think maybe he's just not quite trusted enough to get around the pitch, and maybe doesn't have the fitness to get around the pitch at his age. Just can sometimes be a bit leggy because I don't know why. I
saw that at Notts County, and he also has I don't know whether this is one of those things that football coaches or managers can see past, but he does look a little bit lethargic or a little bit uninterested at times as well when the ball's not near him. I don't know if that is something you'd agree with or not. That's something I observed on Tuesday night.
That's not something I've noticed because a lot of times in the youth games he's almost the best player on the pitch, so the ball is getting to him as often as it can.
The good players generally do that, don't they? They probably look like it's too easy, and they're actually
and the teammates are trying to get the ball to them at all times. So there's an element of that. But I think he's got that sort of knack of making things happen and being in the right place at the right time. So I don't think he'll start, but I think he'll be one of those players that will make an impact this year.
And big season for Andre Dizelle if we don't sell him to Norwich for a stupid amount of money. Your thoughts on whether Andre Dizelle is better sitting deeper and spraying passes around, or whether he can bomb forward? I think I didn't really see the best of him when he was tried as a number 10 towards the end of last season. So is he kind of more of a quarterback?
Yeah, that's where he's played all through his youth career at Ipswich and for England as well. He's played as a number 6, where they normally have sort of a ball winner and a ball player, especially in the England setups. And he's always been the ball player there who gets on the ball and ticks it over. And he's just got such a good range of passing that he can sort of make passes that other players wouldn't even spot. And he's just, there's obviously a lot of interest in him at the moment, and I think we've got to just try and make it work with him this year. We've got to try and showcase him, and he does have his faults. He's not the best off the ball, but I think sometimes you've just got to set a team up to show off what he can do, not what he can't do. And it would be such a shame to see him walk out the door without us seeing, or at least trying to get the best out of him in an Ipswich shirt.
Agreed, and he's kind of shown him in patches, isn't he, so far in his town career, what he can do. It'd be good if he had a full season in League One to boss that, as we think Alan Judge might if he stays around, or if Emma Hughes can get fit. These are players who are top tier in League One, Championship quality players that are a different class to most of the players in the division.
And also they're the players that you can just get massive value for when it comes to sell them, if you can showcase them off. Like the talk about this Norwich transfer, I only saw it just as I was sort of logging on, but the EADT said that we'd basically put a £5 million price tag on his head to Norwich, and that's off the back of a season where he hasn't really done a lot. I know it's only League One, but if he could become a key player for us and sort of dictate the game, he's going to be worth double that. And even from League One, because the transfers are silly now. The transfers into the Premier League are just absolute ridiculous money, and you've just got to get these players Premier League ready, and that is where you're going to make your money, and that is how this club can be sustainable.
You tweeted some sage wisdom, as you always do, Joe, at Joe Fairs, everyone, if you're not already following Joe, about the Alan Judge transfer situation. Can you take us through your thoughts on that one? He's obviously still here, signing autographs at the supporters fan day thingy today. So, what's your take?
I think it's clear. It's obviously been announced now, but I think it was clear previously that he wanted to go, because in reality, why wouldn't you? This situation's come out of nowhere for him. Warburton wasn't in charge. He signed with us, but now all of a sudden a manager who he's played his best football of his career under is taken over a club which has a training ground 10 minutes from Brentford, where he lived, where he's basically been commuting to a place 10 minutes away from that for the last sort of 5 or 6 years. So he's got family settled there, and also I'm an Ipswich resident, but West London is probably a nicer place to live than Ipswich generally, especially if you're earning.
Whoa there, Joe. Whoa.
Yeah, if you're earning.
Says the guy who lives 150 miles away from Ipswich.
Yeah, £300,000 or £400,000 a year. It's probably even better to live in West London than it is in Ipswich. But it's a shame that this situation's come up, and it has come out of nowhere. And I get the fans criticising and saying we shouldn't have signed his contract if he didn't want to be here, but he didn't know the situation was coming up. We'd all look at this on our situation, but it's just frustrating how now a lot of people are starting to talk down his contribution to us last year, where it's clear he sort of dragged us up a little bit with him, and he had that sort of Jim Magilton style attitude where he brings everyone up around him and he demands high standards. And you could tell just watching those little teammates videos that the club are putting out, they all think he's the best player here, and it'd be such a shame to lose him. And hopefully we won't. Like I say, I think it's far from a done deal that he'll go. Lambert's come out and said that they're offering something which is nowhere near what Evans wants, and if QPR aren't prepared to pay a fair fee for him, then he'll stay here and he'll play well for us. And I think that's all we can hope for, really, because I don't think we're going to get anyone as good as him if he does go. But
agreed, yeah.
QPR have just got to stump up the cash, and I'm sure Evans isn't asking for something stupid like 3-4 million for a 31-year-old player. I'm sure it's a fair fee of sort of maybe 7 figures, but just 7 figures. But QPR, 250 grand, 450,000. It's a waste of time. There's 250,000 for him. That doesn't get you anything, does it? They're just pathetic little bids. And if the club were to sell him for that, the fans had every right to be furious at the owner. But at the end of the day, we've just got to try and get a good fee for him if he does go.
Little slugs with no personality, Joe. Wingers, we'll come on to now. Just your thoughts on. We will talk about formations. I keep teasing this. We will talk about formations in a bit. But Judge, number 10 or a winger for you?
Number 10, ideally, but he can play in that wide role. It does put a lot of pressure on Miles Kenlock behind him, but Kenlock has got that sort of engine to get up and down the pitch, so he doesn't struggle too much with it. But you want to get your best player in a position where he's going to get the ball the most, and that is number 10, and that's where he's going to cause the most damage, and that's what we need to try and do.
So the other options out wide are Gwion Edwards, who is injured, Luke Garbett, so we'll finally talk about Luke Garbett, Jack Lancaster, potentially going to be a big season for Jack, and he's got a recurrence of his back injury. Danny Rowe, David Diamond is praying to the footballing gods that Danny Rowe sets the world alight for Ipswich this season. And then we've kind of got a few. Jordan Roberts could play there out wide left, I think. Freddie Sears when he comes back, obviously out right. And I've lobbed him in here because you love him and now I love him too. Armando Dobra, the star of Notts County away. Should we talk about Luke Garbett briefly? Wand of a left foot is all I keep hearing. Do you know any more?
Yeah, he was highly rated as a youngster at Everton and played a lot of sort of England youth group football, but he was always a sort of gallivanting left back who would hammer crosses in and always had a really good cross on him. But it sounded like he had a good loan spell at Fulham in the Championship 2 or 3 years ago, but then since then he's gone backwards. He was at Cheltenham, and then last year he was at Oxford, where their fans will tell you that at left back he was poor, and left midfield he looked really good when he was playing left wing and made some real interesting and good contributions to their sort of strong end to the season. And it seems like he is now a left winger. That is what his position is. From Lambert said, I know where I want to play him, and he's gone to play him twice, and he's played him twice on the left wing. So that is what he is. I can't say I've been impressed with what I've seen of him so far. I thought at Colchester, I thought he was quite poor, but that was his first minutes of pre-season, so I don't think it'd be fair to judge him on that. I think he needs to get up to speed like the rest of the players have had the chance to, but I don't know. How was he at Notts County?
I thought he was decent at Notts County. He had a bit of the Alan Judges about him in that when you played Judge wide, he drifts central. So Garbett was cutting in a little bit into the central midfield, but I liked him. I didn't see a huge amount of this left foot or this delivery that is supposed to be good, but people keep saying it, so we'll give him a chance to get up to speed. But I thought he was decent on Tuesday. A good sort of 60-70 minute cameo. Not a cameo, is it, if it's 60-70 minutes, but
no. A
good outing, as the cliche goes. I think he'll probably be first choice at left wing, I'd guess, if Gwion Edwards isn't fit. Jack Lancaster, Joe, this back injury, is this something for us to be worried about?
Well, yes, it is, isn't it? Like, I don't know much of the details. The club don't tend to go into a great deal of detail on injuries, but ultimately he was going to miss 10 weeks or 8 weeks with a strained back, and then it turned out it was a stress fracture to the back, and he ended up missing the whole season. He's come back, he's looked sharp, and there's an issue again with his back. Like I say, backs are not an easy thing to deal with. You don't meet somebody who used to have a bad back, do you? It's sort of once you've got a bad back, you could be stuck with it. But hopefully that isn't the case. I'm not a doctor. That's not one of my careers. But
well, if anyone wants medical advice, Joe Fairs at Joe Fairs on Twitter.
Yeah. But just hopefully a stress fracture is something that heals, and then it is done. But I think I read somewhere that it's to do with sort of like scar tissue and things that when it heals, that it can be an issue with that. So hopefully it's just that, and it clears.
Yeah, he'd probably be going into season first choice right winger. Do you think?
I think him and Danny Rowe would definitely be fighting it out. But I think, like we were saying about Andre Dazelle, where you want to try and put these youngsters in positions to I don't think it's right to send a shop window. You want to put them in positions where they can show their abilities off and become worth sort of 7, 8, 9, 10 million pounds. If you could have played Jack Lancaster on that right wing and he's get you 12 goals and 10 assists from that position, all of a sudden he's sort of one of the hottest prospects in the Football League and he's worth proper money. So it's a real shame in that respect.
Danny Rowe, is this the season? Tell Dave the good news.
It must be that we don't have any options, and I really like Danny Rowe as well. I find it strange that he's never had a look in really here, because whenever I have seen him, he's always made something happen. I'm sure there's probably an element to his game. It must be his defensive work, which the managers don't like, how he tracks. It's not something as fans you really pay a huge amount of attention to from your wingers, but every time I see him, he makes something happen. I thought he was very good at Colchester the other night. In the Germany games, he was the one again making things happen, and sometimes his final pass lets him down. But I don't know, he's just a player that I just like him. He just does stuff.
And he can play number 10, can't he? Because I think he played there for Lincoln. Can play both sides as well. Cuts in.
Yeah.
If you want to play inverted wingers, and Ben's a big fan of the inverted wingers. He's great for that. We think he'll start, won't we, against Burton? That's good probability there. Jordan Roberts, probably more of a striking option, do you think, at this stage, or is he an option on the left?
I think if you're playing 4-3-3 as opposed to 4-2-3-1, I think he's more of an option because it gives you a little bit more physical presence up there. And he's another one that's impressed me in pre-season. He's really sort of against Colchester. I thought he made a massive difference when he came on there. He looks fit, he looks sharp. Sometimes he doesn't quite have the quality to go with his sort of attitude and work rate and brain and sort of footballing brain, but he looks someone that will do something for us. And I know he's got a goal in him as well, so I quite like him. And when he has played on the left, he puts a good cross in. I think he'll make a contribution to our season at some point, and it's up to him if he can push on with that.
Yep. Freddie Sears obviously out until I think the turn of the year, Christmas, New Year. Talk to us about Armando Dobra, Joe. He grew into the game on Tuesday night against Notts County. I like him.
I'm glad you got to see the little magician in action, but he didn't really have a chance to get into the game at Colchester. But he's just a player that I just love watching him play. He gets on the ball, he drives at men, he beats him, he commits people, he's got that little nasty streak to him. He's going to be a player. He's played for Albania under 20s, and
he's all the best players to play for Albania under 20s.
Yeah, but so there's sort of some international recognition for him, and he had a brilliant season for the 18s and the 23s last year. For the 18s, basically at the start of the season, him and Idris El Mazouni really stood out, and Idris has got that extra size and stuff, and that's really pushed him on with that. But Dobra is going to be one of those wild card players that you can just chuck on to try and get him to do something for you. His final shot isn't always the best, but it's improved so much over the last 2 years, and he's got a good number of goals last year for the 18s and 23s. At one point, he was almost scoring a goal a game, and he's just someone that he gets the fans off their seats when he gets on the ball. But I think it might be a season too early for him this year. But
there's a couple of moments in Notts County where he actually had an opportunity to shoot and hesitated, and then he had to sort his feet out, and then the moment was gone. But he's got great quick feet, isn't he? 2-footed, I think. Quite a diminutive stature. He's kind of able to bounce off players. He sticks his boot in as well. He's got, as you say, little few niggly challenges that were called up on as well. So he gives some back as well, which I think as a winger he needs to. I wouldn't be surprised to see him on the bench for quite a bit until some of these injuries clear up. I think he might get a 5-10 minutes at the start of the season, maybe, possibly Burton before the tougher games against Sunderland and Peterborough. But yeah, one to watch out for there, definitely. We've gone through the midfield and the wide options there. In terms of strengthening and possible transfer business, any additions that you would want to see in those positions? If so, where?
It's difficult because on paper I think we're okay set. But obviously you've got the Alan Judge issue that if he were to go, but I think you've got Gwion Edwards, Luke Garbett, Jack Lancaster, Danny Rowe, Jordan Roberts. That should be enough for the wide players, but we'll see if Judge goes. We probably need one more in there because we're a little bit short with injuries at the moment. Gwion Edwards hasn't played at all in pre-season. Like John Nolan, we haven't really had a huge amount of information about what their issues are, but they're not going to be good to go till realistically the start of September, and that's 5 or 6 games into the season.
Yeah, I think possibly just because of the injuries alone there, just to add a bit of depth might be needed. Let's go to strikers because this is quite straightforward really. If it's a one up top, it'll be James Norwood, and he'll fight every second ball. He'll create chances for himself. He'll lay the ball up. This is probably the signing that we needed last season, wasn't it really? But got him through the door this season. He could be big for us, couldn't he?
Yeah, no, he's looked really good. He's looked everything we've wanted him to be. He looks like he's been that so far. He's got that winning streak. He looks like he's a real character around the dressing room and amongst the squad. His finishing has been brilliant. He's barely missed a chance so far, and hopefully he hasn't used that all up in pre-season. But he look. I say everything we need in that one man up front in this system. He looks like he's got, and if we can keep him fit for the season, he's going to get you 20 goals, isn't he?
Yeah. Caden Jackson's, who's also had a pretty decent scoring record in pre-season. Just it's quite a frustrating player to watch. So Jackson, there are moments where he just gets it, and he plays instinctively and scores really interesting goals, different types of goals. Obviously electric pace, but his brain just isn't there, is it? I don't think he's going to be up front on his own unless Norwood's injured, is he?
No, he plays a different game to Nord, where he sort of runs the channels and stretches the defence and does stuff that way. But the problem is when you're playing 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1, when the striker does that, you then don't have anyone in the box for the sort of decent openings that he does create. But I thought again, Colchester, it was Norwood, him, Jordan Roberts, Danny Rowe. They were all linking up really well. They all looked like they knew each other's game very well, and hopefully. I think he'll make a decent impact this year. He's got goals already in pre-season. He got another one on Tuesday night at Notts County. Missed one, scored one. Missed a couple in Germany. Scored a couple against Colchester. He'll do okay for us, but he does look like he's someone that needs to play with a partner. And I think we will need to bring another striker into the squad.
Thoughts about him possibly playing out wide, given he's got pace?
Yeah, no, I could see it. I could see it on that sort of left-hand side. Because he does spend a lot of time out there, and I think he did that role for us a few times last year. But you sort of want him through the middle because he is just so fast, isn't he? And he just scares defenders with that pace. Him and
Ilmazuni links up quite well for a few through balls and that kind of stuff. He has got the electric pace and possibly a level below now. Maybe he'll tear it up a little bit, but he's going to have to do well to get the number 10 position off, the number 10 jersey, isn't it? The lone striker position off Norwood.
And if you've got Andre Dazelle there sort of playing balls through, I think he'd work well with him, but you got to hope he's someone that can come on against tired defences and cause them all sorts of problems.
Yeah. The other options, we talked about Jordan Roberts. Freddie Sears again is another option there as well, and then we've got 4 kind of youngsters, some of whom are injured. Ben Morris, who kind of injured, had a little breakthrough at the start of last season, then went out on loan and got injured. Ben Falami, who I think is injured as well, is he, or is he around?
Injured. He's injured, yeah.
Aaron Drynan, who played last night, but you think walked off with a little niggle, maybe?
It was more just that he sort of went down and he was then subbed off. He didn't receive any treatment, and he looked decent against Sudbury on Saturday. He looked good against Lowestoft last night, but it just feels like him and Barry Cotter are in that little bomb squad, and I don't expect to see them pushing on into the first team.
And Kai Brown, any chances of Kai Brown making a first team appearance?
Not really, not in the centre. He might be one of those players that comes into like a wide forward role, because that's where he's tended to be playing more for the under-23s at the moment, and it might be that he gets an opportunity there later in the season, but I wouldn't expect to see him playing as a number 9 for us.
So we think another option possibly needed up from maybe another loanee, yeah?
Yeah, or Will Keane, is he still available?
Will Keane, good shout, yeah, I don't know where he's got to.
But we'll struggle to sign him he's going to want to play every week, but
Bunsen Burner, nice little earner. He'll want big money, won't he? So Joe and I have had a bash at what we think the team will be for Burton, and we've factored in injuries, so this will be as realistic as we can get it. You can't see what I've got a special graphic, so everyone who's watching the video can see this as a graphic. You can't see it either, Joe, but it looks great. Trust me, I've put a lot of effort into it. So you've gone for a 4-3-3. I'll read it out so you don't get embarrassed when I tell you to name it.
I do remember it. I do remember it.
So you've sat on the fence here, splinters in your bum. Bart or Thomas Holly, make a call.
If Bart is still here, I think he'll play.
Okay, and you've gone for the Natin at right back.
Yep, I don't think Emmanuel is. Well, I think it's better of two bad options as far as Lambert is concerned. And
Wolfenden and a new centre back / Ndaba in the other centre back position. I guess there's not a huge amount we can say about that, apart from we fully expect a new centre back, don't we?
Yeah, I think it will be somebody making their debut that day at centre back alongside Luke Wolfenden.
Kenlock, no surprises there. And then your midfield 3. This is solid. Dan Scoos and Who's. There's some rhyming couplets there. There's not much debate about that.
No, I think the only thing would be is, like, yes, Emir Hughes has played, sort of taken part in the last 4 pre-season games, but is he going to be phased into first team football, or is he now seen as ready to go from the off? That's what we aren't sure about yet. I think we'll know a lot more about that after Cambridge on Saturday.
Your alternative option, obviously, is sticking in Dazelle there, isn't it?
Yeah, that would be Dazelle instead of Hughes.
And then your front 3 is Danny Rowe on the right, Roberts / Judge, subject to transfer business, presumably there.
Yep. And Judge if he's here, or I think Jordan Roberts, and then James Norwood up front. Okay,
so yeah, that's looking pretty balanced there. In terms of ideal lineups, where would you be making changes, ignoring the centre backs, which would be Chambers and NC presumably? Where else are you kind of making compromises here?
In midfield is where the main compromise. I think we will end up as a 4-2-3-1 team, and I think the two you're going to be hopefully looking at sort of Flynn Downs and maybe Emir Hughes in there with Alan Judge in front of those, or maybe. I suppose if everyone is fit, I'd imagine you'd probably play Flynn Downs, or Cole Skews as well, until he takes over, Emir Hughes and John Nolan as a midfield 3, Alan Judge off one flank, Jack Lancaster off the other flank, James Norwood in the middle. I think that team is going to take some beating this year in the league, but how many times will Hughes, Nolan, Downs, Judge, Dazelle, Lancaster, Norwood, Bishop all be fit together? Yeah. So I've totally forgotten Bishop in there. That is, if all those central midfielders are fit, you are going to be struggling to pick 3 out of that, aren't you? So that's why I think we're going to end up sort of 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3 with 3 in the centre, because we have so much quality in there if we can get them fit. If we can get them fit, yep. So my team is the 4-2-3-1, and I've gone a bit controversial. So I've also got splinters in my bum on the keeper, but I'm going to go for Holly, only because I saw the Bart of last season against Notts County, poor kicking. The goal was probably a little bit harsh, but I just don't think mentally he's there, and I think he probably thought he was going to leave and he's staying, which is why Judge doesn't make it into my team either.
though I probably suspect, I agree with you that Hughes probably won't start. So I've got Hughes at the number 10. I'd probably swap him for Judge. I've gone for Emmanuel at right back because I don't believe that Lambert trusts or even likes Donatian. I've gone for new centre back / Cole Scouse as centre back, along with Wolfenden, for the experience and because I wanted to be different to you. And so there you go. Ken, nice and easy, we agree on that one. My two sitters are Downs and Dizelle, which is why Scouse is at centre back. Agree with Rowe, agree with Roberts, but I've also wild card Dobra might get a chance. I've put him there just for fun, just to see what happens. Start on Burton, and obviously Caden Jackson up front. No, James Norwood up front.
Yeah.
So we've got plenty of questions, Joe. Should we jump onto those? I was going to ask you about 4-4-2. We've alluded to it. I'm pretty certain we've got a question about 4-4-2, so I'll save that for the questions. Let's get to Twitter. Thank you, everybody. Let's do these as quick as we can. Tim Pashley, given recent injury events, how much are we pinning our hopes on Hughes for the first few months of the season? We've kind of talked a little bit about this, but do you think we can rely on Hughes just yet, or is it just give him as much minutes as we can?
I think it's just give him as much minutes as we can. Fortunately, we're in a position where we've got other quality in that position that we're not totally reliant on him.
Yep. We just need to get people fit, don't we, in those central midfielders? Because, as you say, if everyone was fit, it's a really difficult job for Lambert, isn't it? But we've got a question about injury, so we'll come back to that one. Luke Penning, worth a follow, everyone. Luke Penning does some really good videos and assesses transfer targets and so on. Who do you think will be the breakout player from the under 23s this season that currently isn't around the first team group? We talked about Dobra and El-Mazouni. Is there anyone else we should be keeping a lookout for, Joe?
Not really, to be honest, because I think you see how many injuries we've got and seeing how small the squad has shrunk to, that realistically everyone who is going to be pushing on there is already there. You could maybe say a Ben Morris or a Ben Falami when they came back from injury, or Armando Dobra, but would you say Dobra's part of the first team?
It's part of my first team, Joe, but why do I know? Yeah. Sindra Eliasson, who's been really active on the old questions this today. Let me pick the right one. People always talk about 4-4-2 as the answer, as the only solution to involve more people in attack. I don't have any Town fans talking about improving our 4-3-3 with different types of midfield arrival from deep. Thoughts on this 4-4-2 versus 4-3-3? It feels to me that 4-4-2 would be the option to bring the best out of Caden Jackson, but has he got a point about the quality that you play alongside, as you've gone in your selection, on this 4-3-3, or maybe the number players coming back from midfield?
Yeah, it's not always just about quality. It's about the type of players you play in that 4-3-3. Where if you're going to be playing Jordan Roberts on the left-hand side of a 4-3-3, or if you're going to be playing Alan Judge, Jordan Roberts there is a striker on the wing and will get into positions to score goals. Alan Judge isn't going to be getting into positions to sort of getting behind the last man and trying to score goals that way. So I sort of agree with what Sindra was saying on the tweets. I did have a look at these earlier, and it's not just about getting two strikers on the pitch. Like all the biggest teams in the world, like Man City, score 100 goals with one striker on the pitch. Liverpool, I know they have that front three, but that is still one main striker with two wide strikers, and we just need to try and get better sort of quality and wide strikers who actually want to get in the box out wide, as opposed to your sort of wingers like Jack Lancaster as opposed to Gwion Edwards. I know Edwards gets you a few goals, but Lancaster's one that is trying to get in the box to score goals.
Was that a rumble of thunder I just heard in the background, Joe? Are you all right?
There's quite a lot of lightning actually.
It's getting closer. We'll wrap this up as quick as possible. Blue Soap has asked about 500 questions here. Let's will Bart still go? Yes or no?
I think we'd still like to get rid of him, but we're running out of clubs now. I don't think there's anywhere he can go now.
That Millwall medical appears to have shaken, or it seemed to have put people off as well, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think we just need, I know it sounds bad, but we need a championship club to have their keeper get injured. Yeah, that's our only hope.
Fingers crossed. What are the chances of the centre-back trialist signing? Any thoughts? Notts County, I would say that it was Wilson, I think, who played in the second half, seemed a little bit more assured, but I think he's had more pre-season training. But thoughts of these two? Or is it someone else?
neither of them have sort of great pedigree, but I suppose that's where we're shopping. Lambert's talk about free players he wants to sign. I'd imagine these are very much fallback options if we can't get hold of the centre back he's clearly trying to sign from somewhere else. So chances are, yes, we will end up with one of them.
We'll gamble away. We will end up having to. We'll get Burton will come interview and we'll panic, won't we? And he's asked us about should we sign a new forward. I think there's consensus here on that one. Blue Soap. Thank you for the question. Jason asks a really important question. I think we need deep analysis and discussion around Paul Lambert dropping the millennial office attire for coach's outfit. There's something sinister going on here. It's clear Evans is behind this, and we deserve to know why. Thoughts on Paul Lambert going full Pulis, or is this just temporary?
It's not the best clobber, is it, when you see him there with his little Ipswich Town hat with PL embroidered into it?
We all need one of those.
Come on, Paul, you're a multi-millionaire. You can't wear a 30 grand watch in an Ipswich Town tracksuit.
He was wearing tracky bottoms on Tuesday night when it was 30 odd degrees. That was a mistake. He's surely got good footballer's calves. Get the legs out, Paul. Sam Chapman asks, do you think not being able to move Bart on has hampered our movement in the transfer market?
Definitely, yeah. That's really slowed it down, and he's obviously a big wage and a big part of the budget. And whilst we've had other money in from unexpected sources like the Tyrone Mings and Matt Clark sale, it doesn't seem like they have increased the budget. And Bart is obviously taking a chunk of that budget up, which Lambert needs to get rid of him to use, and I don't think he will.
That was a good rumble of thunder there, Joe. It's very atmospheric. Alistair, Olimar, I hope you enjoyed the new theme music, Olimar, for the pod. That's staying for the whole season, so I hope everyone likes that. The January signings were not good enough in the short term to get us out of trouble, albeit a tough ask, but we're not part of the long-term build either. Given the troubles of our summer recruitment, we still appear to lack any strategy. Wasn't Leo Neal supposed to be guiding this? Thoughts?
I assume he is guiding this, but Evans is still the one that has to pull the trigger on these deals, so we don't know really how far advanced Leo Neal can get with these transfers without Evans pulling the trigger. So there's still not a clear delineation of responsibilities at the top of the club, and until we know who's doing what and why, it's hard to pin the blame on one person other than Marcus Evans.
And John Banger, kind of a complimentary question to this. Thought we were looking to move away from too many loans this season. Do you think this will be the case, or as the days tick by, we're going to strengthen to get we're going to get more as a desperate way to strengthen our squad? Luke Garbett, obviously a loan. Thoughts about whether ideally you'd sign Luke Garbett permanently, but if it's a loan to buy, which we seldom do, I guess it's worthwhile.
Yeah.
Thoughts on loans? Is it more of a panic and short termism?
I can understand Lambert was saying about loans, how you don't want too many, but realistically, we're going to end up with one or two, but it's going to end up being more than that, isn't it? And all these comments he's made about loans, he's going to find out that as Ipswich manager, we move slowly in the transfer market and we get stuck in the loan market, and we end up bringing in 3 or 4, and they picking up a huge part of our team, and this plan that we've got just goes out the window when the managers see the quality of the players they can bring in compared to what they've got.
And we might have to wait for other teams to do their business before loans suddenly become available. And I'm counting the flash in the background to the rumble of thunder. It's getting closer and closer, Joe. Jack Slider, given Lambert, let me read this. I was trying to rewrite it for you, Jack. Surely Paul Lambert has to stick with Holly in goal if we brought him in. Thoughts on that as a theory as to who you'd start?
No, you've just got to pick the best keeper, don't you? So yeah. We'll see who that is.
FBL Tractor, with Bishop injured and Judgy the lacking fitness for leaving, who is our best option at number 10? We talked about this. He's lobbed another one into the mix. Crazy at number 10, Joe?
No, I'd probably play Dobra ahead of him. But I think El Mazzuni seems to be next in line at number 10 from what we've seen in pre-season.
Rory Johnson, at what point do you stop calling injuries bad luck and start looking closely at or investing heavily in changing fitness, staff and regimes? Are there other methods that other clubs have implemented successfully around this? This has been brewing, this kind of what are we doing to injure our players, particularly given Adam Webster and McGoldrick's seasons last year. Any thoughts on this?
It does seem that we get ridiculous amounts of injuries, but a lot of the injuries are just bad luck as opposed to things where something have gone wrong. Like Tristan Nydam going in for a 50-50 ball and getting his ankle smashed there's no injury prevention you can do to stop that. Yeah. Teddy Bishop his knee opens up when he's playing, but the thing that always frustrates me is the comebacks where it's you hear a player is 6 weeks away and then it gets to 6 weeks and there's still another 4 weeks and then a few weeks down the line they then need an operation, and it just seems, I don't know, something doesn't seem right. But the problem is you don't follow other clubs as closely as you do Ipswich to know whether we're different. True. We seem to have more injuries, but we don't know how frustrated other fans get with aborted comebacks and things like that. So,
well, it feels like that's part of Lee O'Neill's remit as well, but it is frustrating, certainly, and it sets us back, doesn't it? Phil Bohr, do you think we'll use a variety of formations throughout the season? I like 4-3-3, as do you. But given our lack of fit wingers, a 4-4-2 diamond might be better to start with. Thoughts on, we think Lambert is a 4-2-3-1, has a preference for that. But do you think in League One, particularly when you've got lesser opposition, there's going to be a lot more of a variation of quality, isn't it, between the best teams and the worst teams? Do you think we'll shift around a bit?
I think you're going to need to play two up front against some of the sort of poorer teams in the league. I think as it showed against Colchester, where we just totally battered them for 20 minutes of the second half when we had sort of two strikers on the pitch. And I think there's a lot of games where you're going to just need to overpower these teams and score more goals than them.
I'm just reading through these questions. There's a lot that either we've covered or have already been asked. So apologies to everyone whose question I don't read out. It's nothing personal. Dave asks, with our defence still looking a bit ropey, with no obvious improvements from last season, especially set pieces, do you hope that we will take the will score more than you tactic forward for this season?
Well, we need to, don't we? We need to score goals, and scoring goals has been an issue. And I know against Colchester we scored a few, but I struggle to see that we're going to be a side that's going to rack up 90, 100 goals. So our defending is just going to need to improve, quite simply.
He stuck with the zonal marking. That was noticeable from set pieces. What's your thoughts on zonal? I'm not a fan.
I think we struggled with set pieces all pre-season. We've looked a bit ropey, and I don't know whether the players are sort of capable of marking like that, but we'll see.
A few more questions. These are the ones who replied directly to you, Joe, and they've got a little bit more of a negative tone around them. No offence to the guys who asked them. I don't know what that says about your followers versus mine, Joe. But Phil Pritchard, how many seasons do you see us winning in League One? This might have an optimistic answer.
2.
I think you're right. I feel it'll be a slow burn season. I think we'll probably start a little bit shaky and build into it, and we'll find our confidence. But who knows? It'd be good to. It would be just a one season wonder. We've talked about this, Andy Nichols. Do you think we're still a little bit weak in defence? Our only area that needs adding to. Thought we've talked about this, but is it centre backs and full backs? Do you think we're in the market for?
I think so, because realistically, you've got Chambers and Ntiala. Chambers didn't have the best season last year. You've got hope that he can pick that up, but he is getting to the latter stage of his career. And Ken Lock, Lambert trusts and likes, but right back is a problem position. There's no backup left back with Nydam being injured, other than playing someone out of position there. So we're probably at least 2 short there.
The same with this one. It's an interesting question. On the face of it, it appears to be negative. So apologies, the cricket fella, because I don't think it is. Is this the weakest ITFC squad in living memory? And I'm going to give it a slant, Joe, which is, relatively speaking, for the division we're in, is this a weak squad? Clearly, in comparison to the 2000-2001 squad or the 80-81 squad, this squad is the weakest in our history. But we're at League One. How do you think this squad rates against the rest of the division? I know we're not experts on League One, but
yeah, I've been sort of trying to have a look over the last few days into sort of League One squads, and we are right up there in the sort of, maybe Sunderland and Portsmouth have a better squad than us in reality, and sort of I'd put similar to like Rotherham and a couple of other teams. But I think it shows how far we've fallen when you see the clubs we're compared to. But we have one of the best squads in the division, but it's a long way off being a good championship squad. But yeah, we need to cross that bridge when we come to it. But probably it is the weakest squad we've had in our history, because we're in the worst position we've had in our history. So
agreed. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting season, isn't it? And I think the message is to be patient early on, because it is going to take some getting used to, and we will be seen as a big team that teams will want to beat or to take a point off, won't it? And it's a tough start as well, but hopefully there's enough quality there. Stay injury free as much as we can. A few additions, and who knows, Joe? Who knows? Are you gonna? I'm gonna put you on the spot and ask for a bit of a prediction of where you think we'll finish or how you think the season will go.
I think we'll finish in the top 6, but like I said, I don't think that we're going to be pushing right up at the very top, sort of in the battle for automatic. I think we're just going to be just behind the sort of front runners for that and go into the lottery of the playoffs.
I would like that as well. I think for me, 6th place is par for a good season. My fear is we'll be slightly just behind the playoff places, but hopefully, Joe, more wins, more goals. I think that's the minimum that we could ask for, I think, after last season's.
Well, how many did we win last year? 4, 5?
Yeah, exactly right. So I rocked up to Notts County having looked at the team and wasn't confident. It would be nice to go to games with a bit of confidence that we might actually win something. So here's to that. Season ticket packs are arriving. The last pre-season friendly is Saturday. The Blue Monday podcast is back. It'll be Ben and Dave, I think, doing a little bit of a preview for Burton and a look ahead to the season next week. And then Ben will kind of take you all through the plans for the season and all the stuff that we've got in mind and coming up. Joe, thank you for your time. Thank you for your hard work. I know you've done a bit of research on that and your opinions there and the views we set out, which will probably come to nothing on Burton when he goes 4-4-2 and we'll sign 2 centre-backs and 2 wingers.
Yeah.
God knows what. But thank you for that. And I'll let you have the last word.
Good luck, everyone, in League One. I hope you enjoy some new away grounds and some wins.